Hello, this is Elaine Sugar, award-winning children's program facilitator and overall supporter of children's dreams. Welcome to the Empower Teen Self-Esteem podcast. We bring you ideas and resources that help teens shine and help ease parents' minds. Welcome to all of our listeners out there. We have a wonderful treat for you today, talking about a gentleman who has a long career, but also some of the most amazing energy you will ever meet. I just recently met him, but there's a certain feeling and vibe that you get, which is so delightful. So today we are going to be talking about how teenagers can own your place in life at an early age. Sometimes we tend to talk to teens like you have to wait and do everything when you grow up. And this gentleman is telling us to get an early start on learning to own your place in the world. And I love that. So this lesson is going to be brought to you by Roger Burnley. I am going to let him tell you a little bit about himself, but I'm going to brag on him a little bit because our teenagers are often fascinated by celebrities. So let me get your attention and let you know that this gentleman has been coached to people like Brandy, Ray J, Macy Grace, Idris Elba, and the Beastie Boys. So some of my teens may not know all those names, but your parents 9 times out of 10 know them all, and you all know how to Google. So I just wanted to share that with you to get your attention. And now I am going to introduce you to Mr. Roger Burnley. So welcome, Roger, and thank you. I'm honored to have you.
Thank you so much, Elaine. As you were saying all of that, I thought this is perfect for me to talk to teens and their parents, actually,
Yes.
because it's something that they each need to understand. As you know, I'm an intuitive empowerment life purpose coach. Now, I came to all of that from a long, long journey that started when I was this kid. And I remember when I was 12 years old, I kind of thought maybe I could sing.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know if I could or not. It never come up to me before. But then someone said something that kind of told me, no, you have a terrible voice. You can't do that. And so I
Really?
started shutting it down, even though I had the sense, and this is what I'm talking about, intuition. Kids have intuition, and it's really highly developed when they're younger until we talk them out of it. That's what happens
Wow.
because we can tell them things and talk them out of it. So now speaking to parents, it's like when your kids start expressing these interests in things that maybe you don't even understand or
Yes.
want them to explore it, see what's there. It's not always that they're going to follow through with it and
Right.
do it, but it helps their development and helps them build their trust in themselves. The reason I'm talking about it is because I carried that one incident at 12 years old around with me for years and years and years. And it was so difficult to break through that feeling of being limited, of being terrible, because
Wow.
of something that one person said to me when I was 12. Now
Words matter.
I can think that maybe so many other things, but, and the other part of that is that my mother had a great sense of entertainment music. She sang and she played piano, she studied ballet. So she had a sense of that. My father,
Wow.
not at all.
Wow.
When I expressed an interest in wanting to do this, and he's like, no, I don't think so. And
Oh.
so I kept shutting down
Mm.
because of that. Now it's turned out well for me because now I can help other people not do that
And you're
because I
helping
know
people
it's
all over the world. And I was so busy talking about your personality, which I love. I did not even let my audience know that you are a voice coach and a channeler. So we'll
right.
also want to tell them a little bit about what it means to be a channeler and the work that you do there, because a lot of our young people may not be familiar with that.
We all have a connection to something outside of this world, our spiritual connection.
Uh-huh.
And that's sometimes difficult for people to understand. They can understand when they go to church, though. When we
Okay.
go to church, why do we go to church? We
Mm-hmm.
sit there and we pray. We're told to be quiet or we're told to meditate. Why are we doing that? It's so we can shut down our brains
Mm.
to hear information that may be coming to us from the universe, from wherever it might be. It's always there. We do know that. And I like for people to just get the concept in their heads. All the stuff that has been created came from somebody's imagination.
Hmm.
Why not yours? Do you know why not yours? And because sometimes if we have, like me, if we were told that we didn't have this ability, and for whatever reason, we start
Yeah.
shutting down anything else that might come to us, especially if it feels like some sort of guidance. And
Yeah.
we all have that. We have that guidance, but it's hard to follow that a lot of times. And I struggled with it forever. So now the channeling thing came to me because I was introduced to this through other people. We learn things, we have to model certain things for people to even know that it's possible. And I remember in this is a long time ago, 1970s, I started reading, I was introduced to a book called Seth Speaks. And I didn't know what it was, but it was this book that someone said, it was channeled. This information came to this woman, Jane Roberts, and then her husband would sit there and write it down as she was speaking.
Wow.
It's the most fascinating thing ever. Now, if you find, there's some old videos, people could find these online that show her in this process doing it, but it was a very long time ago. However, we evolve. And now there's so many other people who are doing this, and they don't look as strange as Jane did back in the day, because she would go into contortions and her voice would turn strange and all of that. And that's what turns people think, oh, only certain people can do that or have that ability. And it's not true. We all have that ability. It's just that I've been practicing it for so long that I can feel the information, the energy of other people. And that's why I'm an intuitive when I work with people as well. So, but it's a process. For the longest time, I thought this was a little insane, but I started writing. There's something called automatic writing. And it would be great for kids to think of this. Think of automatic writing, because what it is you sit there, you quiet your head, you quiet your thought, and just take a pen and paper, and I'm going to write. And what they can do is start practicing this when they have to write an essay, when they have to write a story or an essay about something. That's what they're doing. They're making it up, but they're hearing something that's telling them what to write. And the more they start to trust that, more information comes through. Some of them may turn into authors by practicing that. So, but that's what I started doing. And then I did that for years. I started, just to get the year, in 1988, I began doing it and I do it every day. Every morning, it's my practice that I will sit and I meditate and write. But a couple of years ago, that changed, because I thought, I'm running out of paper. I'm running out of space to keep all these writings that I've been doing for all these years. And so then I thought, oh, you're just holding on to a crutch here. You don't need to write, just type. So then I started typing. That was the next step. Then this year I said, oh, well, no, I know I can speak all of this too. So when I am doing a channeling session, I'm quieting my mind. I'm getting quiet and getting information that's coming through that is going to help whomever is listening. Usually it's me, but whoever's listening, that's what's happening. And as you said, I'm doing another session on this coming Sunday, because we're all moving through a really important time in our life. And that's the information that I've been receiving. And I'm going to talk about that.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So that might be a new topic that some of our young people hadn't heard before. And I love that you explained to them about the automatic writing. And I know they can relate to that from all of the essays and papers and things. They have to sit there and think, what am I going to write about?
Right.
So that's pretty powerful stuff.
Elaine, let me tell you one other thing about that. I'm coming because I wanted that book that I mentioned, the same author. I read something else later, and they said this to me, and I realized now, as you were speaking, I realized that this helps so much, because they said you have access to all the information in the universe, and if you sit and believe that, you'll see that it'll start coming to you.
Wow, that is so powerful. So you have access to all of the information in the universe. You just have to sit quietly, and it will start to come to you.
Exactly.
Now that is explained in a way that is very relatable.
Mm,
Fantastic. So
right.
thank you so much for sharing that. Can we transition back really quickly to what you do as far as voice coaching before we get into the direct advice for the teens?
Mhm,
You before we started the interview, you were explaining to me how someone came to you right before a performance
mhm.
and you were actually able to
Mhm.
help them get their voice back. And I always thought, I know there would be times where I lost my voice and it would take me days, so I
Right.
didn't even know it was possible. So tell us kind of exactly what are
Ex-
the things you do when you train people with their voice, and how did you work through that particular incident? So two-part question.
Right. So what, first of all, let's explain what happens when you lose your voice and it goes away, or you're hoarse or whatever. It's because your vocal cords have become inflamed, and they become
Oh, okay.
inflamed by improper use. You're yelling, you're screaming, you're doing all of that, and you're pushing against things that are causing the vocal cords to become swollen. So if you
Mm-hmm.
think your vocal cords, this is your larynx or your voice box, your vocal cords are here this way.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're pushing up here, pushing down there all the time, they're not operating in the way that they should. And so the natural response for the body is to create inflammation, to try to protect
Wow.
things. And so then, like you said, it typically takes a day or a couple, for it to come back where you have
Mm-hmm.
your voice. The reason you get your voice back because the swelling goes down, you see.
Wow.
But there's certain
Okay.
things that I can do, is depending, when I'm working with the individual, to get the voice to come back to a greater degree, because I take them through various exercises that causes the body to relax, and then the vocal cords start to calm down a bit, and then they're able to go and do something. Now, they're not, he probably wasn't great that night,
Uh-huh.
but he could produce sound. And that was all I cared
Wow.
about. They had to go to, this was the Beastie Boys, we keep
Uh-huh.
talking about it.
Uh-huh.
And he was the main guy. This is Adam. And they had a big concert here in LA, at thousands of people. And so
Uh-huh.
they couldn't cancel this. And it was a little crazy, but we got him to the place where he could do it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That is so interesting. So, you were saying that you want the teenagers to find their place in early life and own it. Do you want to expand on what you mean by
Well,
that?
let me tell you how I came to that. This is good. I'm glad you brought that up, because when I started coaching, vocal coaching, I'd done a lot. I had done a lot of other things before I even came to the vocal coaching. But
Mm-hmm.
when I started doing it, I realized that I was doing it because I had such insecurity in myself.
Wow.
Because of that early incident,
Mm,
and I had that insecurity, so I could see it in my clients. But I also knew that once you start realizing what you have, you start to feel more confident.
awesome.
Our voice is our first, um is our most personal form of expression. We know that when we meet somebody, we've got to open our mouths and say something. And
Mm-hmm.
so if we're not feeling confident about the sound of our voice, we're not feeling confident within in our lives. So
Mm.
that's where I started finding that, oh, wait a minute, I can make people feel more confident just by them owning their voice. When they start owning their voice, no matter, they'll do all sorts of things in their lives beyond. And Elaine, I've done this so many times. That's why I can say that. I've worked with so many people who I knew were never going to be singers. They
Mm.
thought that that was what they wanted to do, but what they really wanted to do was to develop confidence and to make sure that they felt good with their voice. And that turned into the confidence for them to do the thing that they really wanted to do.
Interesting. So it started out
Mhm.
you helping them with their voice, but it was
Right.
about confidence building.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And there's a lot of other reasons that go on with that. I'll talk about Macy, because I know you mentioned Macy. I love
Yes.
Macy so much. We've been, for many, many years. But when she first came to me, she didn't know she could do any of this. She wrote songs. I mean, she didn't write songs. She wrote prose. She wrote poems. She's a brilliant writer. She's really a
Uh-huh.
brilliant person. But someone suggested to her that maybe she should make songs out of
Mm-hmm.
these.
Mm-hmm.
But then they also told her, well, your voice is terrible, though. You don't sing well. So maybe you should go and get voice lessons. And that's how she found me
Okay.
as a result of that. And she's never worked with anybody else all these years.
How about
And
that?
and then what happened was she didn't want to do necessarily this. She was in school. She was in film school at
Mm-hmm.
USC at that time. But then things started to take off. Now they didn't take off then, but that's a whole nother story.
Mm-hmm.
That's that'd be a whole nother thing. But anyway, no, it's not. Let me tell you this. This is an important part of this story,
Okay.
because what happened was when she first started to develop this and do this music, she was signed to a record label and they put out something that she didn't really like. It wasn't her.
Mm.
And she ended up leaving the business
Oh,
after
okay.
that.
Mm-hmm.
She left the business. She went away and moved back home and had kids and got married. I didn't even know this. Then when she decided to own who she was and put out what she wanted to put out, now we have Macy Gray.
There you go.
Yeah,
Wonderful. That's what you're talking about when you're talking about owning your own place. Sometimes
absolutely.
people try to put you in a place where you know you don't belong.
Right. And my whole thing, Elaine, is that I tell everyone we were all born with purpose to be fulfilled. We all have it. It's just
Mm-hmm.
that it may take us some time to uncover that, or maybe we've been told things like me when I was younger that you're not good enough, you don't have all of that, and we believed it. So becomes really important, as you said, for us to watch what we're saying to our kids and
Yes.
to also entertain that natural intuition that they have that is saying, hey, mom and dad, I came here to do this. Please help me achieve that. That's a whole different experience. I'll talk about this too, because I want to give this to parents.
Yes.
Parents think that they're supposed to control their kids. No, you're just the guardians. You just brought them here. You're supposed to
Oh.
help them along. But most times what we're trying to do is we think they're supposed to be just like us. These are individual souls who
Mhm.
were born. Yeah, you facilitated them coming into the world. You
Uh-huh.
gave birth to them, but they have their path that they're supposed to develop and live. That's what we've got to do. And then for parents, when you do that well, that becomes your legacy.
How awesome is that? And you're right, it is definitely a legacy. There are so many times when I go to do things, make decisions, I think about the time and the energy that my parents put into making my life better than their own. And so I
Mhm.
honor that and I think about them in the way I carry myself. So you're right, it ends up being a legacy. Now, for my parents who may be squirming a little bit at those last couple of statements you made,
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
parents don't own their children, they're the
Mhm.
guardians, they're
Absolutely.
facilitating. Um, that does not mean that young people don't have to listen and take direction and follow
Exactly.
instruction.
Mhm.
Just for clarification, I know that is not what you are saying,
Oh,
but
not at all.
it could have
No.
possibly come off that way, but it was perfectly clear to me. So I want to
Right.
say, young people, you still have to listen to uh,
Exactly.
adults. And, if you
Because
have
the
to be home
parents,
at
their
10
their
o'clock at night,
job,
you have to be home by 10. If you have to
right?
go to school, you have to go to school. Don't say,
All those
well,
things.
Roger said you're just you're just my guardian, so I get to
Yeah.
choose if I want to go to school or not.
Not at all.
That's what
Not at
Roger
all.
said.
Yeah, no, you've got to do all of those things. You have to follow all of that because you don't know anything yet. You
Yeah.
think you do. Kids
Ah.
is always think that they know everything, and they do in terms of what they might feel, but
Uh-huh.
how to navigate in the world, they don't know that yet.
Haven't
They don't
learned it
know
yet.
about all those other people out there who might be wanting to do harm. They don't know
Yeah.
what might, just a simple thing when you're a young kid about crossing the street, looking both ways. There's a lot of things when you come into the world you don't know. So
Yeah.
that's why we have our guardians. That's why we have our parents, so that we
Perfect.
can learn all of that stuff. And then the parents, what their job is to say, let me give you all the rules. Let me show you how everything works in the world so you can navigate this really well. And then you're going to discover why you're here.
Awesome. That is so fantastic. So I want to make sure that everyone knows all the wonderful things that you are doing right now and how people can get in contact with you to
Mhm.
use your services. But is there anything else that you want to say to parents and teens before we make sure people know how to get in contact with you, website or whatever it is?
It's there's so much I could do so much with this because
Well, you
I've
do
had so
whatever you want to do. This is
we'll, no,
fantastic.
I would love, we'll come back and do more at some other points because I
Yes.
think it has to come in smaller places,
Okay.
bits and
Gotcha.
pieces, because
Hmm.
um, parents, I love them so much because they want to feel that they've done a good job. And sometimes
Yes.
they just don't understand that they may be a little overbearing, controlling too much in
Mm,
certain ways. And just because they didn't do something in their lives or didn't have a certain interest does not necessarily mean that their kids were not born with that interest that they were meant to develop. So
right.
that's just really, but anyway, there's so much of that. I've seen kids, I'll just say this for parents.
Hmm.
I had when first there was one client that I had. This did not serve the child well at all.
Hmm.
I had this parent call me up. It was probably 25 years ago, and they said, "My daughter really needs some help. She's got a tour, and we've recorded this album. She's done the album, but she's not really sure about how she should be on stage and all of that,
Hmm.
and work with her voice." And so I said, "Okay, fine. So we'll work with her." So they come in, they bring me the CD
Hmm.
that they've created, and it looks beautiful. All the
Hmm.
songs are done. I'm listening to it, and I'm thinking, "This sounds great. What's wrong?" What was wrong, she couldn't sing any of it. Because what the parents did is that you can do this. You can go to a studio and you can make something sound great. We have technology now. We have something
Ah,
called auto tune. We have so many things that we
yes.
can take anybody and make them sound great. And so
Yes.
now we have this 16-year-old kid who's got to have to go and perform because
Mm,
her parents sent out an album that she had done
wow.
representing it to be her.
Wow.
You see, you can feel that. What's going on there? That
Yes.
kid, oh no, wait a minute. That screws up your life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I've seen so much of that. It's just, and I know that the parents thought, they believed that they were
Mm,
helping, that they were
yeah.
doing a good thing, and they had the opposite result. But
Mm,
so anyway, we will do some more of that. But the thing that I
yeah.
was saying now is that kids are our future, as you know, and so
Yes.
we keep figuring out as civilization, we keep figuring out the best ways to help raise them so that they
Hmm.
evolve into the people they're supposed to be. We learned that maybe beating them all the time wasn't the best way. We
Right.
learned that a while ago, but some of us are still carrying around that idea that we need to do that in certain ways. So
I
there's a
must
lot.
say, I'm the youngest of 9 children, and that was one of the benefits of being towards the end. People had started to figure that out.
Oh,
So
that's yes, that's perfect. You're like,
I'm
yes, there's,
so glad
oh,
I
wait a
was the
minute.
youngest of 9.
That's perfect. That's so perfect. Yeah. Uh,
Yes. No, that's fantastic. You have given us so much wonderful advice, and I know that from this interview, those who are meeting you for the first time can understand now the way I introduced you. So
mm.
much wisdom, so much positive energy. So tell people how they can get in touch with you. If they want your services, how do they go about that?
Probably the easiest way would be the burnleymethod.com, what's on the screen. They can go there. Or my other website is rogerburnley.com. Either,
Okay.
or they can find me on Facebook too. Find me on Facebook. And in all of those places, I have my link tree, which will have the links to contact me and just,
Awesome.
to come to my webinar on Sunday that I'm doing. They can sign up for that.
Do you want to
I
tell them
have
a little bit more about that? So you're doing that every Sunday or for how long? Just give
no,
us a little bit more information.
I'm doing it this Sunday. I do it when I feel called, when I'm feeling like there's
Ah,
something going on in the world, something that I'm
mm-hmm.
supposed to talk about. I'm not sure
Yes.
how many I'm going to do. I've done a couple of them. This is the third one.
Mm-hmm.
And but what's happening now is that we all need to bring a little more light into the world.
Yes.
And that's what we are talking about on that day, how to do that. Because we're
Mm.
working through our own limitations and all of that stuff. But we're seeing it expressed in the world. And if anybody's listening, they can see what's happening. We can see strife in the world. We see difficulties and all of that.
Yes.
But when we can come back inside and start to work on us and appreciate what we have, things start to change outside in the world too.
Fantastic.
That's what we're up to doing now.
Awesome. So they can find you at your website or on Facebook, and you have
Right.
your company name on the top of the screen, the
Right,
Burnley
yes.
Method. So
Yes.
you have been so fantastic. I knew you would be. I was looking forward to this. Didn't we run into all kind of technical problems before this interview, but we had to push through, and it was
It's all right. It's all perfect.
it was all worth it. So thank you so much, Roger. I
Thank you,
love the
Elaine.
fact that our paths have crossed, and I don't plan to let them uncross. We're
Great. Thank you so
we're gonna
much.
stay
Yes.
in touch, and
Anywhere I can be of service, I'm here. So.
yes, and we appreciate that. And it's obvious that you live that way, which I think is fantastic about you. So thank you so much for being here, spending
you.
time with our teens and parents. And to our listeners, I would say thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Empower Teen Self-Esteem. Please stay tuned for our next episode. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Empower Teen Self-Esteem. Please follow Kids More Sugar on social media. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel to show that you support this content. And you can visit our website at kidsmoresugar.com to learn more about our free online kids program. Thank you.